Good evening and warm welcome. It's a great pleasure to welcome you on this Tuesday evening. And I would like to check if you can hear me well, and you can type in the chat. And also if translation is working, the translators can maybe check. And very warm invitation if you're in a position to come into camera, because it is like an opportunity to meet. And we really welcome your comments and questions, if you have any, to join in this discussion today. And also, it'd be great to know where you're connecting from, if you feel like sharing. Thank you for the sound check confirmation. This subject is quite unusual, and I'm really intrigued to see where it goes. Slow down to go faster. And maybe to pause to reflect what it means for you, and then at the end, any new insights. But I will share my research on this afternoon. Simon Sinek said, better to go slow in the right direction than go fast in the wrong direction. I can relate to that in certainly my life. I remember speed was very essential, but I have to say didn't check the direction very well. So I'm going to introduce to you the two speakers today who are going to be in discussion. We'll first go to London, Georgina Long, and she's the Interfaith Coordinator for Brahma Kumaris, World Spiritual University, and she's represented the institution at the World Parliament of Religions in 2019, which was in Toronto, Canada, a trustee of the World Congress of Faiths and Religions for Peace, the UK Women of Faith Network, and a student and teacher of Raj Yoga for 35 years. So lots of wealth of information, knowledge we'll have from Georgina, but no less, we also have with us David Goodman, retired community dentist and trustee of Janki Foundation for Spirituality in Healthcare, which is a UK-based charity, meditator for nearly 40 years, based in Leeds, and coordinating activities of the institution in the north of England. But on this occasion, we're going to be gentlemen first. We're going to invite first David to share. We're into equality here. David will share because he is the one who came up with the topic. So we would like to hear from you first, and then we'll hear from Georgina before we have discussion. So good evening, and I better let you unmute and invite you to come in to sound. A warm welcome, David.
Okay. I can hear myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Yeah. It's an interesting theme. I kind of, when I started, I trained as a dentist, and as you know, that's a bit manic. And I was also a very keen sportsman, and so I think it's fair to say I was a very active child. And so coming into meditation, the idea of meditation and kind of like, sitting still and being quiet and all that stuff, not so easy for me. And also the kind of job I was in, my whole day was think, speak, do, with 25, 30 kids who generally were the ones that most of the other dentists couldn't treat or wouldn't treat because of their behaviors and stuff. And so the concept of, which we see in meditation of, just sitting quietly, eyes closed and all that. And I'm from Liverpool, so I can remember the Beatles time. All right there, Paul, peace and all that. But that, obviously would work for me as a dentist. I had to be very alert and active. And so I was always very keen, I was very interested in the kind of interfaith of kind of silence and quietness of mind and actually action and someone someone said to me a while back, and then I've kind of adopted it as a bit of a mantra. When I was rushing, they said, David, don't rush, just move quickly with focus. And moving quickly with focus is very different to rushing. I mean, I'm sure it must be your experience, but when we rush, we're very likely to make a mistake, which in some cases can just completely slow us down, because then we have to put right our mistake. And obviously, if you're driving, then it's dangerous. And in my case, working with young kids who are nervous and behavioural problems and all that stuff, I couldn't rush. It's not possible. And so I'm kind of on an external level, this interfaith of what's going on outside and what's going on inside. And I can remember actually a time when I worked, this is going back 20 years, we were still doing chairside dental anesthetics, which if anyone knows about, an anesthetic in its normal sense is not very safe, or it has its risk, and the chairside dental anesthetic is seriously not very safe, but we used to do them. That's the way it was when I was there. And the anaesthetist arrived half an hour late because he'd had an emergency, and we had a big long list. And I could see the faces of all the girls, the nurses. They were thinking, "Oh God, we're going to be late," and blah blah blah. And I got the feeling that they wanted, because they were going to be late, and they know they can't rush me, and I just kind of stopped and looked at them and said, how would you feel if you were bringing your child into this surgery thinking that all the staff here were kind of wanting to rush because they didn't want to work over? And anyway, that seemed to do the trick. It all went quiet. At the end of the session, and in that session, I mean, I'm fairly focused anyway. Obviously, you need to be when you do something like dentistry, but I just really focused down, and really total focus, attention. And they all noticed that at the end of the session that we finished 5 minutes over time, not half an hour. And so for me, that's proof really that when you're slowing down inside, you actually are more effective and efficient, and in that case, a lot safer. So yeah, I think what else? I was thinking about someone here said, what about the old Simon and Garfunkel song, slow down, you move too fast. You've got to make the morning last. And I just love this idea of kind of slowing down to go faster. I mean, I can remember years ago, I'm in the office here in the meditation center. I'm looking at some of the pictures on the wall of some of our senior yogis who've now passed on. But I can remember one of them when they came to London, and she made a comment. She said, God, all you guys, well, she didn't use those words, but this is the essence of what she was saying. She said, you guys always seem to be rushing and moving quickly. And she said, we don't do that. We just go steadily, and we get all the work done as well. And it kind of, and so that kind of, slow down to go fast kind of thing, it's been a kind of a thing with me. I mean, some of you, I went on a sort of a self-management course, and one of the questions, it was a questionnaire. It said, right, you have to answer these questions. There's 24 questions, and you have to answer them in 1 minute 30 seconds. And of course, everyone. But I've always had the habit, even before exam, when I was a kid, I never jumped into an exam. I would sit for 15, 20 minutes, look at the questions, make an outline, and then stop. People thought I was crazy, but anyway, it seemed to work for me. About a third of the way down the questions, there was a question that said, please do not answer any more of these questions, turn your paper over and finish. And so what happens in an exercise like that, most of the guys in there were scrabbling around trying to finish the questions. But actually, the 10th question out of the 30 was, you don't need to answer any more questions. You've finished, turn your paper over and relax. So, yeah, I think that's probably enough. I think that throws the pebble into the pond for my dear friend Georgina to pick up the baton.
Absolutely. And, that made me feel like sometimes we want to be seen to be doing a lot, and that might be part of the reason, and looking busy and looking like something's happening, but actually what's really going on, it can be a very different story.
Yeah, actually, I looked at a couple of quotes as well. So as you do doing this, I think there was one, was it Brené Brown? She said, being frazzled and stressed is almost like a status symbol nowadays. People don't quite understand. Yeah, good stuff. Right, I shall put my...
See what's coming up for Georgina on this subject and your inspiration.
Well, thank you, David, for that. And thank you for inviting me, Sarah. And hello to everyone. Lovely to see familiar faces and lots of new faces for me. I've been obviously thinking about the subject all day, and literally at 6:30, my Wi-Fi went down, so I had to rush to another venue. I've been playing up all day, and I realised it wasn't going to behave. And as I was marching down the road with my laptop, thinking, don't rush, everything will work out all right. And of course it did. But it was a good, I don't like rushing. And as I've got older, and I'm now in my 76th year, I'm happy to say I have slowed down. I used to rush around a lot. And as David said, for the different reasons for rushing around, you've got to be seen to be busy, multitasking, having lots of fingers in lots of pies, sort of thing. So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about a couple of stories to tell you. The first one was when I was a teenager, young, still at school, and my best friend's father was retiring from his job. He had a chip shop, and he retired on the Friday and died on the Monday. And it was a great shock to all of us. And I was really recognizing how his identity was the chip shop, his workplace. And that was his identity. And he had nothing else. He didn't have any hobbies. He didn't have any other interests. And when that was finished for him, he even said it himself. I remember hearing him saying, well, I'm done when this is done, and he left. And I was thinking about people that I knew who had left after they'd lost their job, or it could be a loved one, very close, in a close marriage, say, and people don't sort of hang about, they go. And I was thinking about how our identity is so in the external. And I was thinking, if you were told tomorrow you had to stay at home for 2 years, as we have done very well, very beautifully, I think, not have any contact with anybody, not go out, and you had to be on your own, how would you deal with that? How would you cope with yourself? We have a lovely phrase, make your mind your best friend. And that's a good time to make your mind your best friend and to be creative what goes into your thinking. Because when some people I know who've retired, they say, I'm going to do this hobby, I'm going to sail this, I've got a bucket list. And invariably they don't do it because they've come out of their daily routine, and it's quite a job. And I think the most successful person I know in doing that transition from working full time to having no work was one who kept his daily timetable with him. So he got up at the same time, he prepared for the office, although he didn't go for the office, but he kept his timetable, and that was very helpful. And I was thinking about the importance of the timetable. The timetable itself is a word that was invented when there was the invention of trains. Before that, the word never existed. But when the train companies got together, different train companies, they realized that they needed a timetable. So that's the birth of the word timetable. How important time is to us and how we use it. So when you're on your own, how do you use your time? Another saying, which you've probably heard before from us, is and it's a Daddy Janki saying, make sure you use your time in a worthwhile way. And that's a big topic, one perhaps to have a whole session on. But the other story I'm going to tell you about is something that happened to me in the late 80s. And I'd been invited to teach in a maximum security prison in Leicestershire. Rather nervously, I approached my first lesson, and it was a group of long-term prisoners who had all murdered. And anyhow, they all appeared, all in their best clothes, and I shook their hands and we sat down, and each one introduced himself. And I introduced myself and said, oh, so you want to learn to meditate? It was their thought that, and their desire that the education department head was very liberal, and he had called us there to introduce meditation into the prison. Anyhow, I did the usual introductory talk that we do when we're invited to share about Raj Yoga meditation. And at the end of the session, I said to them, well, gentlemen, what do you think? Would you be interested in this? Would you like me to come each week? And they looked at me, and one of them, whose name, and it's his real name, Elvis Presley, a big black guy with a huge scar down his face, he said, well, miss, I don't think I've got enough time. And I said to him, well, my dear man, hasn't Her Majesty given you rather a lot of time? So everybody laughed, and it actually broke the ice quite considerably, because they were as nervous of me as I was of them. And we had weekly sessions for about 2 or 3 years after that. So I got to know them very well. And how they use their time was very important. To some of them, use their time very constructively. As they said, they needed to make sure that when they got out, some of them were very long sentences. And I was working at another prison. I had the opportunity to work with Open University students. I was able to look after them for their preparation for their exams. And of course, within a prison environment, it's very noisy, very busy, very, very disciplined. And to keep yourself sane and also do your work on that at a high level of education was quite a challenge. And I observed one individual and I said, how are you managing this? And he said, you know, Georgina, I meditate. I have some time for myself, and I'm locked up in this place. I have a lot of time for myself, but I use it creatively, but I do keep some silence, some space for myself to become in that silence. So interesting. Anyhow, I think that will do for me.
Thank you, Georgina. I think it's fascinating. A question comes up actually about the lockdown, which in a sense we're all, doing some kind of time, in a matter of speaking. But I think many people, previous to lockdown, the culture of work hard, play hard, at least certainly for younger people in the capital. So work pressures, the number of hours people are doing, it's higher than it's ever been. And so the wish to gratify oneself, which also means maybe getting involved with many situations, things outside of work. But lockdown changed that round. And I think many had a realization they want to slow down, they want to adjust, but they can't necessarily come out of the work that they're in. Some have downsized, but many can't. You mentioned also an older age, naturally it happens, but what would you say to a younger person who has realized from lockdown that they want to change? I don't know if maybe David has any thoughts on that, and nice to hear from Georgina as well. You got muted at some point, David, isn't it?
Told my accelerator's stronger than my brakes, so I tend to keep myself muted.
Oh, just a note, ironically, translators have asked you to just, if you could slow down.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I think you're, just to mention,
So what was, just really,
for
the benefit of the audience, just repeat the question.
During lockdown, many of us have realized it would be beneficial to slow down. We've sort of been forced to, but if someone can't, financial reasons, commitments, is there a way to, you kind of touched on it earlier, but it's like a state of mind, and maybe we then can affect the outer world if we simplify our lives. But any thoughts on that?
It's interesting. I was checking out some e-bikes recently, and I spoke to someone on the phone, and it turned out she'd done some of the sessions here many years ago, which was quite interesting. And she said, I really need to get back to do some meditation because I had a very good job which I've lost during COVID, and I said, have you got family and mortgage and all that? She said, yeah. She said, I'm coming out in rashes and I'm stressing, etc. And so obviously we had a conversation about doing some meditation. I sent her some stuff, but we also had a conversation about kind of acceptance. There are some things which actually, some things we can have an influence on and change things. And there's some things which actually we don't really have any direct influence on. And, they're immovables and they're things that just happen. What I've noticed, because this has been my sort of little bit of an, I suppose, in a research project for some time, is that the mind is just straight off. It wants to, but what about now? I've got the mortgage, and I've got this, and all the kids, and I'm just finding that I'm telling people just, one thing at a time. I mean, it's such a, that sounds hackneyed, really, isn't it? Every spiritual discipline talks about being in the present and being in the moment and the here and now. But actually, I'm thinking, really, I'm not sure that there is anything else to do. Even the expression, there's no time like the present. In a sense, there isn't any time like the present. We've only got the present, like, where are we now at the time? Half an hour ago, this was the future, wasn't it? And in half an hour, this moment would be the past. And so it's all kind of relative and kind of, it's very easy to miss out on life. It's very easy. I mean, if I'm being honest, even as seriously long-term meditator. You know, Sarah, you'll know this, you know, being involved in BK outreach in Georgia. If we're not careful, we just shift everything over from what we did previously into spiritual. And then, you know, I've seen lots of people, meditation teachers, running around a little bit like headless chickens, you know, and I've done it myself. You know, I can remember, you know, going from work, doing a session at the university, dashing back to the centre to do another course at 7:30, and then it was one of my BK friends. This was when I was very stressed. I said, David, what do you want to do with your life? And I thought it was a very interesting question for someone. It was already very spiritual, and so yeah, okay, that's going off a little bit, but ultimately, I think we just have to slow down. There isn't any other choice. There is no other choice, and to actually enjoy life. And I wonder if the word enjoy comes, you know, from to be in joy, to be in a state of joy. I've got to slow down. I mean, it's just, you know, I drove from Leeds to Bradford, you know, every day, nearly 30 years. And towards the end of my tenure, I came down the hill and I looked up and I opened my horizon and I thought, oh my God, I can't believe I've never noticed that vista before. And I thought, oh, and suddenly I realized, goodness, you know, because in essence, when we rush, we narrow down, and then we miss out. And the thing that we miss out, the important thing we miss out, of course, the enjoyment, is people. I mean, I had a young canvasser coming around canvassing for the Labour Party, asking me who I vote for. I said, well, I have to speak to your guy first. I don't just do the Labour stuff. I said, but she, bless her, she was lovely, you know, 25, and very intelligent, blah, blah, blah. But she was like this. It wasn't, I almost, I can't do it now. I almost felt like in the old days, I was sort of got hold of and say, will you look at me when you're speaking? You're all over the place. And I said, have you ever thought about, he said, this isn't bog standard houses. I said, no, it's the admin centre, meditation centre. And she said, what you said, she said, go on, I know you're good. She said, I'm interested in meditation, and go on, you don't have time. So then I gave her just a minute card, of course. So we had a bit of a laugh about that. But I mean, when people phone up on the phone, I would say, I know you're really busy and you probably don't feel you have time to learn meditation. And it is a bit like that. And I said, if you don't have time, then you meditate. You really need to meditate. And if you're telling me you don't have time to stop for a couple of minutes, you know, you're in serious need of meditation. And I'm just remembering one little clip I saw in one of the newspapers years ago. It was a little article about stress, and it's a really nice headline. It was dead on time.
Reminds me, we had a speaker from India, and she said, you should meditate 20 minutes a day. But if you're very busy, you should meditate for 1 hour. So
it's like a kind of, I don't know, there's a name for that, isn't it? When it's paradoxical.
It would be nice to hear what comes up for you, Georgina, and some of these reflections.
Thank you, David. I think, you know, I think most people, as you say, they're not present. And I think they live up here somewhere, you know, or they're stuck in the past. And when there has been that 2 years of lockdown, they've had to look at themselves in a different way. And for some, that's very frightening. And and they can be in quite big denial about where they are. And their fears come up in different ways. So I've observed in many BKs because I live in a community with 3 brothers, and I've had observed the first 6 months how they were dealing with lockdown, and we did all sorts of things to keep interest, to keep them lively, because they were lively. The rest of the residents were all dead as anything, still breathing, but they had no interest. But the BK brothers were, and one of them, I bet him every day he could do so many laps of the car park and the garden. And I sat in my chair, I didn't do the running, and counted the laps. I said I'd give him 10p per lap. And he did so many, I said, I think we better put this down to 5p. But it kept him active, it kept him focused, which was a very strange time for him. But we had a lot of laughs, and I think we got £20 one week, which was quite a lot. It went into the kitty. But yes, I think having to address yourself when you're alone is a big thing, and how we help with that. And it was noticeable that the online meditation uptake, particularly the morning meditation, was taken up, which we started quite quickly at the start of lockdown, was taken up by hundreds worldwide. People were tuning in for this. It was very, very effective and very helpful. So people were looking for ways to not just fill their time, but to help them in their situation. And hopefully we will be continuing with the systems that we had to put out there during lockdown. So, yeah, this thing of being present is a big thing for the individual. And not everybody is aware that they are who they are. They're still thinking about their job and thinking about how they're going to get back. And there's a lot of anger, of course, and a lot of stress. And how we enable others to see there are opportunities to help themselves is it's our job as Brahma Kumaris, really, to enable others to help them to see themselves, to be with themselves in a more happier way. So yes, this slowing down business. As an old person, as I said, I still think I'm 26. Slowing down has been, I love it. I have masses of time, and I do lots of things with that time. In fact, since retirement, I think I do more than when I was working full time. I did take the opportunity to go part-time. My last 3 years of working life were in a hospice. So, and then I was given the opportunity to work on a piece of work for a year online. And so my gradual coming into not working was easier than most. I was remembering an early time when in the late 70s, when the whole financial system of Great Britain changed, the government changed, and there was huge changes. And people who had been in work and had a settled job and they were going to retire with the gold watch and that was it, they were all thrown out of work for a variety of reasons. And at that point in time, I wasn't a Brahma Kumari, and I worked for a recruitment centre, family recruitment company. And there were people coming in who had worked with their companies. There was managing director of Gessner, you probably don't remember these, you're probably as old as I am. And they were absolutely devastated because their work had gone and they didn't have the I didn't even know how to do a CV. So the working life of many changed very dramatically, and there was a lot of stress, a lot of pain. And now, of course, when somebody presents their CV, the employer wants to see several jobs, whereas once upon a time, it was to have one job was considered the best thing. So you see how lives have changed so much in a short span of time, how we're dealing with stress, how we're dealing with the world, how we're dealing with ourselves in the world has changed an enormous amount. I'm sorry, I'm going on too fast, and I'll leave it there anyhow.
I think the speed is good, and you just it made me think as well. Technology has had a big effect on our engagement with information and the amount that we're processing, and that probably has an effect on thoughts.
Yes, I quite agree. Yeah, how we. I'm very anti the machines, the PC, and I'm not a very good taking on with the gadgetry, I'm afraid. So I only just do what I have to do, and that's it. I don't work with anything else. So my colleagues I'm always asking, can you do this for me? They say, you know how to do it. I think this is when you get to, I keep saying I'm too old to learn all these new things, but I'm having to learn all these new things. So I'm enjoying that in some ways. But you do get over, there has been resistance in me to deal with the modern technology and information. There's so much information coming in. And I ration myself now. I don't listen to the radio. I just get one hit at 5 o'clock and get the main news. And then I leave it because too much.
I can see David nodding here.
Yeah, no, it's I've been thinking a lot of it. I mean, I like to be really engaged. It's funny enough. I mean, I'm getting older because I'm nearly 70. I find there's a little child in me, and I'm actually probably more as active now as I was. But when you're talking about emails and all stuff like that, makes us sound like, oh, it's not like it used to be. But in times past, people would write letters to each other, and they didn't expect a reply, Whereas now it's like even in the
instant.
Even someone I send you an email 20 minutes ago. Why haven't you replied yet? And so I've like the other day, I mean, I was subscribed to lots of interesting things, health things and blah blah blah. I'm right across growing and gardening and all stuff like that. So, but I just thought they all send you lots of stuff, and I looked down and thought, actually, some of this is useful, but I'm not going to have time to look at it. So I pretty much unsubscribed from about 90% of them. So I thought that'll sort that a little bit. But I feel I've got to like protect myself. How to be engaged, like you say, the news, Georgina. I'd really like to know what's going on, but now, the thing is that whatever comes in, you have to get out. So okay, you see the news, so you keep up to speed with, say, the situation in Ukraine, you get the essence of it. But then, down the side comes the news feed, and you've got, there's this or this and this and this, and basically, if you're not careful, your head is filled with a lot of stuff, and in today's world, that's basically going to be negative and sorrow and pain and stuff like that. And so we know that's going on, and as I said, once it's in, it has to come out again. So I'm kind of limiting that, and also, if I'm not careful, those things are going to affect me, where I get to lose a sense of hope and gosh, what's going on and blah blah blah. Now I feel quite very fortunate, really, having the spiritual insights that the Brahma Kumaris have given me, that I've got I really feel I've got a very beautiful context to everything, so I'm able to stay fairly stable about things, but still to restrict the intake is, I think, is really important. And I'm telling people, I say, look, don't. And like, I've just come back from India, and I had 4 weeks, which is very unusual for me. And the first time I went to India in '76, there was 35. It was a big group from abroad. 35 of us, and there was only 35 people from abroad in our spiritual headquarters, Madhavan, when I was there, which was because of people were hesitating about COVID and all this and the other. And so I had a most exquisite, what I called an old-fashioned spiritual timeout, where I just sort of walked around, looked at the birds, listened to the birds, thought beautiful thoughts, which every day for like 40 years I think, oh, I really need to make more time to think more about this, that, the other, the spiritual things which are sustaining you and feeding you and all that stuff. And I had to do it, and I was doing it there, and it's such a beautiful feeling that it's almost like your whole body is slowing down, and it just feels so nice. And then for me, the beauty, and this is where my sport is, that, for me, what I really like about, Raj Yoga meditation that Brahma Kumaris teach, eyes open, alert, active, on the ball, engaged, and yet to be able to sort of, if you like, in terms of punctuation, just put the full stop and say, right, that's over. I don't need to think about that again. I've been doing my but I'll get an email from someone, and I've already written it in my head, almost by the time I finished the email. And now I said, excuse me, Mr. Mind, are we going to reply to this email? Is it, out of the 10 emails, and I'm not an admin person, but I'd have to do it. Are we going to do this now? Is it really that important? So, okay, right. So we're not going to write it. So why are we thinking about it? Why? I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear the email. If we're going to do it, let's do it. Let's think about it once and then do it. Finish. Om Shanti, as we say. Over. Full stop. Next. And because this is going back down to this thing of presence. And I can't remember. It was a book before I came to BK's, because I had a garage full of spiritual books before I pitched up to the Brahma Kumaris. It might have been one by Aldous Huxley, but I can't remember. But in that, it just came in my mind today. There was like 3 phrases that they kept using. Stop, attention, please, and here and now. And so I'm because I think, you think about driving, and I drive in India, and if you want to increase your reactions and you develop 360 all-round vision, drive in India. I tell people, if you have the slightest thought about fear, don't. But when you're driving, if your attention goes for a second and your car's going slightly off, you don't wait couple of seconds before you correct it, otherwise you'll have a serious accident. So and when I was in Liverpool, I jumped in a taxi, and as I do, I chat to people, because when you're from Liverpool, that's your sort of religion, really, chatting. And I said, what do you do apart from this? He says, I'm a professional boxer. I said, really? Who have you fought? And he mentioned names. I said, blind. So we then had a conversation about, just a minute, Carl, have you ever done meditation? I must have. I said, and then we had a conversation about focus and attention, and he said, David, when you're boxing, if your attention goes even for a fraction of a second, that's it, you're knocked out. End of the match. I thought, wow. So I was thinking, like, being attentive, and of course, we talked about this when we had a chat on the phone individually. The slowing down externally, because outer reflects inner, but actually just being attentive to see. And I've when I was in Madhuban, our spiritual headquarters, I really had the time to do it. And I thought this is a really good thing to do, because I am being honest. I did check the football fixtures tonight. I know, yes, Cambridge will just be kicking off now, but Liverpool are playing a game at 8 o'clock, big game, a quarter final. But I said, okay, to train the mind not to go there, or you're going to meet someone in an hour, or maybe you've got a meeting after this, or you've got a meeting tomorrow. The mind will go there, and it goes off, and it's all energy, and it's a complete waste of time. Quote by Mark Twain. A lot of.
What's coming up here is like action in action. So it's not, often we cannot see, but what is happening? We can't see our thoughts. We can't see what's happening with others, but this attention sounds very powerful. So I'd like to ask both of you, because slowing down to go faster implies that there is some direction and there is some aim here, and we're all trying to progress to something. But now you've had more than 35 years or 40 years. What is your aim in your practice of meditation? And David touched on it, like context. You feel this has given you context. So I guess this is crucial when we want to progress. We need context, we need the clarity. So I don't know if Georgina wants to pick that one up or have any thoughts. Actually, you got muted, just need to unmute there. Yeah.
I think I'm very fortunate to live on my own. I'm very fortunate to have a spiritual family around me. And I'm very fortunate to have the chance to journey inwardly with confidence, and that I have others who I can share with and help and check where I am in my spiritual life. We're fortunate in London to have senior teachers. And of course, we've had the experience of living with Daddy Janki for quite a long time. So you were asking what is my focus now, and my aim, actually, if I look at that first, is always to try and improve my silence. I love silence. We speak about the sweet silence. I enjoy silence, and I recognize there is a fortune in that, because many cannot cope with silence. But when I talk about silence, I mean a really deep, deep feeling inside me of beyond quiet, beyond stillness. And it's vast. It's vast when you sit in it. So in that, I can explore more things that I want to look at in myself, and I come to know myself better, of what I can cope with. David and I were chatting last night, and we were talking about, don't want to be miserable, but talking about our illnesses, what we've had to cope with, several operations, and how our meditation has really been there for us, that having the practice, having the regular practice and attention has been there. When I look back, I'm amazed at how, because you can't see from my face where I've been in my body, with the body, nor can you with David. You know, we've had an interesting journeys, but the meditation and the ability to be comfortable in silence has been such a blessing for me. And if I can go a little further with this, my contact with the divine has really improved, has grown, I feel a deep connection, and that is wonderful, wonderful. And I'm very fortunate that I'm contented in my life. Contentment is a very special thing. In Madhaban, I was informed that I was Santoshi, which means the one who is content. And at that time, when I was told this was in the early 90s, it wasn't my case at all. So I had to work finding my contentment and my happiness. And what is so wonderful is it was always there. It's just opening up and opening up that great depth in each of us of peace, of love. And one of the keys to that, about 3 years ago, I worked on gratitude about 6 months. And when I worked on that, I found it was the key to my father's heart, because he opened, I could feel his heart opening to me. And I felt comforted, protected, loved. And so, yes, my aim and focus is to go deeper into spiritual connection with the which is divine, and also to become more silent. And it's lovely to become more silent. You use less words. I found that slowly going away. But, you know, we tend to, a sentence can be very long. As I'm sorry, but this has been very long. Anyhow.
It's lovely.
Interest.
The two pods that these out of the same pod. I was told I was a jewel of contentment, or very content, and I was feeling decidedly uncontent. But the very highly spiritual person that told me this, very basic things, they said, actually, if you think about it, you are content. And I thought, I've been thinking about that for about 40 years, and I've decided that he was right, actually. What is my aim? It's a very interesting question, Sarah. It feels to me, my whole spiritual journey of like, you know, you read something and you resonate with it, and because it's already there. I mean, basically, in a sense where I feel now I'm just getting back to what I am, and but I need to execute that and be that. You know, I feel I've read so much spiritual stuff, even in the Brahma Kumaris. It's, you know, over 40 years of spiritual study and meditation every day. But for me, the real deal is where the you know, the rubber hits the road, and to actually be that in action, and so I think that's what I feel, and yeah, just to finally finish, because I'm looking at the time. I don't know. Do you normally finish with a little meditation? So
Yes.
Yeah, which I'm going to invite my dear Georgina to do, because she said us such lovely meditation.
Dear.
Okay. And some of you might have read Jonathan Livingston Seagull. You know, the seagull who was trying to perfect his flying. It's a beautiful book. If you haven't read it, do read it. It's only very short. You can read it in an hour. And he was sort of going, he reached the limit of his physical dives and things. And there was this kind of, if I remember, there was like a sort of a guru seagull on the rock. And he was there, and he came next to Jonathan, and then he disappeared and appeared on the rock on the other side. And Jonathan goes, wow, that's cool. I mean, how do you do that? And he said, well, the trick is to know you're already there before you set off. And so, you know, we use this expression, Om Shanti, I am peace. In a sense, that's the beginning, the middle, and the end of our journey. And maybe, I wouldn't have said this 40 years ago, but maybe, you know, this to be closely connected to God, with the divine, because, you know, all this spiritual study is fine, but I need power. I need to know, I have to have the feeling that I want to do something, but I also need to know how to do it. And I also need the power to do it. And I feel personally, you know, with the stuff I've learned with Brahma Kumaris, is I do feel I understand myself a lot better. So Om Shanti, I am that being of peace. And then, you know, it's like trying to recharge your batteries all the time. So your battery has got to be connected to the generator. And there's a new advert for a fancy car that says, you know, charge as you go. And I thought, yeah, that's what I need to do. You know, so as you're getting stuck into anything, I think it's Alexa's out of my bracket, but I thought, wow, that sounds great. Yes, I like to do that. So really active, but actually charging as you go, so that you're not actually losing power. And for me now, as I said, I wouldn't have said this 40 years ago. That is the connection with the power source. Right, I'm going to stop there, otherwise we're going to run over. But
thank you. You both reminded me of a cartoon. You might have seen it, where it's a young gentleman at the computer, so a bit lost in the screen, but he's also got the earphones on and music, and he says, in his thoughts is saying, God, why can't I hear your voice? And it's like, I think that describes in a sense this aspect.
Well, he needs to get a set of bone-conducting headphones. So that's what I've got. So that, and you can put your silicone earplugs in, and you put the headphones here, and you can still hear. That's another story, but very useful and safer. I close my eyes sometimes when you see these guys walking on the street and they're walking out onto the street. And
I like what you said about, if you think about it, you are content. And yeah. I think that's quite very reflective, actually.
Yeah.
And also a very practical thing, if we start to observe, sometimes it's like 10 thoughts rather than just one. Have one thought and do it. And I think that helps a lot. So yeah, some nice experiences shared in the chat, lots covered in the last hour. And we would maybe have to create more time to hear your stories. We both have a lot to share and the practical experiences. But perhaps we can create time now for some reflection. And if you're happy to share some thoughts for 2-3 minutes, Georgina, that would be lovely to finish. Or anything you want to add also.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll share Om Shanti. I am peace. So for the next couple of minutes, if you'd like to just go within and say to yourself, I am peace. Peace is my original nature. A peaceful mind is a stable mind. In peace, I am calm, steady, reliable, with full attention in the world that I live. go into your ocean of peace. When you have the time, take the time. It's yours to take, to be peaceful and calm, to withdraw just for a little while and sit in the sweet silence, your sweet silence within. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you, David.
Nice to set an aim maybe for one thing that has been useful or powerful and practice, experiment with it. What came up towards the end there from both of you was feeling of timelessness that actually happens when those experiences are touched on, and I think that's it's like a relief. So this whole time issue ceases to exist, so that this peace, this Om Shanti, is a bit like a key. So that's my takeaway.
Yeah, people talk about that. So I've looked at that a lot. I look at sportsmen and performers when they're in the zone. It's almost like time stops, and you see that with the great sportsmen or musicians. They appear to have all the time in the world to do something. You know, like you see, like a cricket shot, and it's, you know, the guy goes, wow, it looks as if he had all the time in the world, even though the ball was probably going 100 miles an hour. So that it's a kind of a lovely space where you actually do get more done when you're inside your, like the gyroscope, it's spinning around, but it's stable, isn't it? Right.
Thank you for that.
Oh, then we'll be off again, otherwise, won't we? Right.
Well, it's a good segue. It's a good segue. The talk we'll just share with you in 2 weeks, Mystery and Meaning of Life. So some of these things we might have to bring up. How is it that cricketers appear to have all the time in the world, but also out-of-body experiences? So yeah, really, really profound and beautiful and heartwarming, honest sharings from both of you. So lots of appreciation, and thanks to everyone for creating time. And look forward to hearing if you want to share your experiments on this. And we'll meet again very soon. So enjoy.
Thanks for holding the space, Sarah.
It's a pleasure. Shakti. Until next time.
Thanks, Sarah. Yes, I'll have a look at them.